Hi, and welcome. This is another lunchtime edition of our StackUp Talks. Today we're focused on marketing, and my name is Charlie O'Donnell. I'm an investor at Brooklyn Bridge Ventures, and I have here Katie Perry from Public. And we're going to talk about something, or Katie's going to do most of the talking, about building a brand that goes beyond marketing. And I know for a lot of folks, brand is this kind of like amorphous thing. You sort of think, oh yeah, that's the thing I go hire an agency for, and then they don't think about it after. But it's obviously a really key component to marketing, works with a lot of other factors and channels. And so you're going to help us shed some light on what goes into that and what that's all about.
Yeah, looking forward.
Cool. All right. So I will get out of your way and let you do your thing.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I am Katie. I am the VP of Marketing for Public.com. We are a social investing app. Makes the stock market accessible and educational. Let me just go to the beginning here. Can everyone see that? Okay, I'll assume you guys can see this screen. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So Public.com is a social investing app. Basically put a social layer onto the stock market. So on one hand, you have the standard brokerage app. On the other hand, you have a community of people who are investing together. I joined the company back in November last year, which feels like a different world, but it's been an incredible journey so far. And I'm really excited to share how we view brand. I think, as Charlie noted, it is kind of this amorphous thing. And if you're kind of not in the marketing space, or even if you are, you sometimes do go to that space of, oh, I need a branding agency, or brand is purely the aesthetics of your business. And brand really is more holistic than that, in my view. It really is kind of like the vibe and the tone of the company, which should infiltrate every single thing you're doing at the company. And that's where I think sometimes you see companies have a little bit of a disconnect between what they're showing in one area, specifically marketing or PR, and what they're actually doing on the other end. So viewing brand more holistically across the entire business helps you be more authentic, and it just makes that story more powerful in every touch point. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So again, I'm Katie. My background, I've worked at startups, I've worked at ad agencies, public companies, came circled back to the startup world. I just really love building. These are my most used emojis. Currently, there's a lot of that one going on, but grateful to be at Public, grateful to be able to work from home in this uncertain time. Hope everyone's doing well and staying healthy. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you guys about our principle at Public, which is everything matters and what that means. And then I'm going to show some examples of how that comes to life in our brand across the entire organization. And then we'll have about 10 minutes at the end for some questions. So again, like I teed up, Public is a new kind of investing experience. As you see here, it looks a little bit like Venmo meets business Twitter. Essentially how it works is you can invest in publicly traded companies. You can buy fractional shares. So say you have $10 you want to invest in Amazon. Maybe you don't have $3,000 just sitting in your bank account for that. You can do that with a fractional share. And then the really differentiated piece for us is the ability to share why you invested. And when you share the why and kind of clue other people into your decision making, it helps everybody learn. You can learn about how others are thinking through these decisions and be a more confident investor yourself. And in addition to kind of what our product does, our big mission as a company is really to change the culture of investing. These are some examples from popular culture over the years of investing and investors. And as you can see, it's very homogenous. It's the people in suits. It's the people running around in blue jackets on Wall Street. But that's all changing a lot. And so our real mission in the product and everything we're doing is, yes, we're democratizing the stock market. We're using tech to make it more financially accessible. But in addition to that, the brand we're building, the tone we're setting is really about changing the culture. And if anyone wants to sign up or check out my portfolio, you can go to that link. And if you sign up, you start with a free slice of stock. Quick before I dive in, I have to show this slide. We're in a regulated industry, so the TLDR here is I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't take anything I say to be direct financial advice. Otherwise, we'll upset Glenn, our amazing compliance officer. So with that, we'll dive in. Here are Public's core principles. We're really going to focus on the first one, but what I think is really cool about what the leadership team has done at Public is even when we were super small, 15, 20 people, there was a lot of thought put into what are the core principles that are going to really define the business. Super important when you're a startup to have these because we're working so quickly and making decisions so quickly, and having an established set of kind of like guidelines really helps make the decision making easier on the fly and make sure that the decisions we're making early on are setting us on the right track for our North Star as a business. So if you go to our Medium, you can see kind of the full list with all explanations. But I'm going to talk about this first one, which is everything matters. So what does everything matters mean? At a high level, it just means that everything we do matters, big things and small things. And we really believe we're building our brand brick by brick. Great brands aren't just born, you know, one day you launch a new website or redo your logo. It is a series of small things over time that compound and build on that brand. And so that's really how we view it. It doesn't mean that we don't prioritize. Obviously, you know, we're a growing team, but we're still small. We have limited resources. We got to prioritize things. But what it does mean is we go the extra 20% when the opportunity makes sense. And I'll talk a little bit about that in kind of how we execute on that in marketing. So the first kind of like diving into brand is everything. What is everything? I think the big thing to start with here is the product. Your brand and what you believe in as a company has to come to life in the product itself. One thing I love about working at Public is we are very product led. I've worked at a lot of companies, startups, where sometimes as a marketer, I felt like I was kind of pulling the product team. I wanted to announce and show momentum on a new feature, or you know, have a story that I could go to market with, but the product wasn't necessarily there. What I can say about Public is I feel like constantly I'm trying to keep up with product because they're shipping things so quickly and really doing things that are so true to our brand in the app itself. So here's one example. In the onboarding, we actually have, when you sign up, we go through our community guidelines in very conversational tone to set the tone for how the community should behave, because we are a community. We're one part brokerage app, one part community. So this little signal here kind of just orients the new member coming in around here. This is the tone of the company. This is what we're about. Another thing we do right in the app is on the stock pages, we actually show, you can tap into words and definitions that you might not know. So 90% of our members are new investors. Terms like PE ratios, price targets, you see them flying around CNBC, but the average person doesn't talk like this, right? And so a big principle we have in the product is to write language in a way that people actually talk. We're not trying to sound like barons. We're trying to sound like your friend who's been investing for a while and wants to kind of help you along the way. Another thing we do in the product is we curate stocks into themes. So usually in like a financial news outlet, they might organize things by sectors. I don't know about you guys. I don't know anyone who thinks of the world in sectors. I think people think of the world in the things they believe in and the things they care about. So we'll curate groups of stocks based on things like Meatless Revolution. So that's companies innovating in the vegan food space, or Women in Charge, which is a list of companies that have females on the leadership team and on the board. And this just, again, makes the stock market more personal and relatable, and it's right within the app. And it all goes back to our big mission as a brand. Another big thing we recently did was safety labels. And so what we do in the app is we actually have guardrails. So I think we believe the democratization of the stock market is an amazing thing. Technology has really unlocked a lot of doors for people to get in and start learning. On the other side of that, we recognize that a lot of these people are new to investing, and we want their first investing experience to be really great. And so for companies that have been deemed potentially risky by the SEC, we actually have a little label on the stock before you buy that explains why it might be a little riskier. And we're not going to stop you from investing in that. That's your prerogative. But we do have the member swipe to confirm that they indeed have the context. And this was born out of kind of the Hertz news from earlier in the summer. I don't know if you all are familiar, but Hertz basically issued billion or wanted to sell $1 billion worth of shares of new stock, despite the fact that they had just declared bankruptcy, which was totally unprecedented. And so we kind of saw that and said, look, people might see headlines like this, not understand. And so we built it right in the app. Another big piece of, brand is everything is who you hang out with. I always think about the phrase of like, you are the sum parts of your closest friends, right? And some brands have like one person who represents the brand. If you think about like Jennifer Aniston for Aveeno or Dave Portnoy for Barstool Sports, for those communities of people, one person is the brand. For us, since we're going after such a broad and diverse target, it's important that we have multiple people we hang out with and multiple people we work with. So Scott Galloway is an investor in the company. He's probably a usual suspect for someone like us, right? He's been hyper critical of, irresponsible trading and investing behavior. He is, a business professor. He's all about financial literacy. That one, that makes a lot of sense. But what if you're not in that business community, but you still want to invest? So for that reason, we have other people involved. So Sophia Amoroso, who's the author of Girl Boss, is an investor in our business. Also, Brandon Bryant, who's part of Harlem Capital. Katie Storino is a influencer who has her own company on in the self-care space that's available in Target. So the sum total of these people signal who we are as a brand. And it's important to us that we have a good mix of people representing us and that we're hanging out with. Here's a quick video from Katie I just want to show. I actually realized you guys won't be able to hear that because my earpods. But basically in this video, Katie kind of talks about investing in a super relatable way. She talks about how growing up, she always thought, her dad should handle this for her. And as an adult, she had this moment of like, hey, I want to do this for myself and I want to learn. So she's someone we're hanging out with who isn't an investing expert, but she's along in the journey with our members. And that's really important for people to see people like them that they recognize in the app on that same path as them. But we also have a lot of people who are more sophisticated. So there's other people in the app that you can hang out with and interact with that might be more on your level in terms of investing. Corrine Sue has a Pocket Change Substack newsletter, and she has pretty sophisticated analyses of public companies. Packy McCormick has a really popular Substack on business trends. And so you can kind of find your people in the app, but it's important to us that that group of people is really reflecting of different investor profiles. Building on this, I think another important point is brand is who you acquire. Recently, there was a really interesting Twitter thread that we were kind of involved in where this person here, Bobby, said, wouldn't it be easier for public to go after the typical investor types, the people who are already trading regularly, they're already super active traders? Wouldn't that make more sense for us? And our CEO Life had a really good response. He said that, in the early days of a company, it's important to know who you're for. And if you go after the most obvious groups of people, you become who you acquire. And so we've been very strategic about the communities we're partnering with and how we're acquiring new members, because we do have that social piece. We are saying we're an investing community for everyone. It would be a very disingenuous thing for someone to see that message come into the community and not see a great mix of people from different backgrounds and walks of life. So I thought this was a really salient point that he made that is definitely true for us. We really see our brand as the sum total of our community members. And so how we acquire people is really important to building that in the brand. I keep this screenshot on my phone for personal inspiration, and I definitely don't want to call out this person. I assume he meant no harm by it. But it's one of those choose your fighter memes. Obviously, you look at this, and if you don't look like one of these people, it is immediately sort of alienating. I think one of the issues with this investing overall over time has not just been the economic barrier to entry, it's been the psychological. So I even remember growing up, like I never saw financial services products necessarily have people that look like me in it. They probably look like my dad or my grandpa. And so it's important to us, again, when you're kind of entering our community, it looks a little more like the people you might want to be able to recognize people that look like you. And I think representation is really important. So that's really key for what we're doing on the brand side. And again, we have a really big mix of people in the app. You'll find creatives, you'll find designers, you'll find healthcare professionals, teachers, college students. It really is a broad mix. And again, that sum total is who we are as a brand. Another critical piece of our brand is CX. I think some people think CX is, oh, they're playing defense, they're support, they're just reacting. That is definitely not the case at Public. CX was actually one of the first teams that was built out at our company, because we see them as an extension of our brand, and actually one of the most important extensions, because at the most critical moments when our customers need us, the CX team is the voice of Public. They are the brand. So we really view strategic or CX as a super strategic function in the company. This tweet here from last week, this woman actually took to Twitter to say how much she appreciated the customer service she received, which I wish I had a social listening study on the percentage of people tweeting to customer service, positive and negative. I think if somebody goes on Twitter and says you did a good job, it's pretty good. And so that's really how we view it. One thing this team does that I think is amazing, they actually keep a log of anytime a member recommends a feature or has a suggestion or gives feedback, they record it. And if it happens in the future that feature ends up being implemented, or we take that feedback, someone will personally from our team reach back out to them and let them know and thank them again for their contribution. So little things like that really matter. In this instance, because this woman was so nice, our team actually shipped her flowers overnight. And again, it's a little thing. She's not an influencer. This isn't just for the important people. It's something we think of holistically, and really have that be part of the brand. So going into like what you would obviously expect, big signals, right? The big things your brand does, these are important, and these are areas where we are putting in the extra 20%, as I said. We were a tiny company a few months ago. We're much bigger now, but we had a beautiful website, and we invested in content like this on the site that was beautiful and sleek. And that wasn't just because we realized that in financial services, credibility is really important. And so that was something we decided we really wanted to invest in. We also obviously got this domain, which everyone says, how did you get that? What did you pay for it? I actually don't have the answer. But again, this wasn't just kind of a flex, like, let's go get this crazy general URL. It was really important to us to have the credibility. And so again, that was an extra 20%, but it was really important for the brand. We also do a lot of these kind of side campaigns outside of the app, designed to reinforce our mission to kind of bring investing to the mainstream. One thing we just did was ticker tease. So we build a microsite, we integrate with Shopify. You can actually type in your handle on Public, select from the companies in your portfolio, and make a custom t-shirt. Again, reiterating kind of, we're more focused on longer term investing. And so if you're a day trader, you're probably not putting something on your shirt. But if you're investing in companies that you believe in, and that's a reflection of who you are, you love the shirts, and people went nuts for them. So again, another thing that just adds to the brand, that's a bigger signal. We also have this fun tool called the Ticker Time Machine. It's basically just a calculator that tells you what you spent, what you would have, if you invested in the past, what would it be worth today? There's a million of these calculators. We put it on this cool space animation. There's like Hans Zimmer music. It's a whole experience, but again, it's just a more accessible, fun way for people to learn and experience some of these concepts. But it's the small stuff too, right? So it used to be the way we greeted people at the door, the onboarding process, we put a lot of thought into how you treat candidates, how you treat anyone really, even vendors. All of these tiny signals are parts of the brand, and everyone at the company is an extension of that. So it's not just on marketing to kind of build reputation, it's really on everyone. One quick anecdote here is, we announced a funding round in March, and we had some momentum when we got this influx of resumes in. And I'm personally very empathetic to writing back to people when they apply to jobs. I graduated in the Great Recession. I spent 9 months trying to get a job, and most of the time never heard back. So with this gentleman here, I just wrote him a personal note, and I thanked him for his cover letter. I acknowledged, I know it's really hard to apply for jobs. It's time consuming. It sucks to not hear back. I gave him my LinkedIn link. I was like, add me there. And most people respond to these and they'll say things like, I've never gotten a note like this. Again, it's worth the time you put into it. And it's a nice thing to do, but it's also a great reflection of the brand overall. So summary, brand is everything. Starting with the product, your brand has to really be authentic in the product itself. There can't be a disconnect. It's who you hang out with, who you affiliate with as a business. It's who you acquire. It's how you help your customers. And it's the big signals, of course, but also the little things. So with that, there's the link to look at my portfolio again. I also have swag. I'm happy to give away. So would love for you to test out the app. Let me know what you think. I have some cool swag. And with that, we'll get back to the Q&A.
Cool. So you're the first person who came to a virtual presentation with swag. So I really appreciate that.
Pretty cool.
So I have a question about how the brand gets developed. So for example, you pointed to a couple things like, hey, you've decided that it's really important to see different types of people associated with it, right? Not your typical. Is that something that is, at least for you guys, founder driven? Like walk me through, for, literally as I'm sitting here, I'm texting one of my portfolio companies that just recently launched saying, we should sit down in a meeting and like write this stuff down, right? Was it something where you walked into the job and life comes to you and says, hey, this is what our brand is? Or did you guys sit down and say, okay, like, let's think about what this should be? Or did it stem from something else? What is that process like to decide?
Yeah. I think the core vision and mission of the business was really driven by, the founders and the team there. They really had a strong conviction. And I know you know life from Anco days, but kind of that idea that something's happening here, people are interested, but the existing products aren't necessarily serving that group of people. What if there was a different way to do this that would resonate more? So that was very much, that's always been kind of who we are. In terms of things like the principles, we had a 3-hour work session with the management team going through, what are these things we want to set. So beyond kind of the core kind of reason for being at the company, it is a very collaborative thing at Public.
Cool. So Michelle actually stole my next question. And this is sort of what I was thinking is, I think in the early stages of a startup, particularly somebody that's like seed funding or whatever, you feel like you have so little capital to invest in hitting goals, right? And the goals, I think a lot of times feel very short term, whereas brand feels longer term, right?
Yeah.
And so you immediately, for example, people think, oh, we should start marketing. Let's go buy some Google and Facebook ads. And they spend less time thinking about brand development, right?
Yeah.
But not all brand development is a $250,000 agency. I mean, some of it is stuff that doesn't necessarily cost that much. So could you talk about sort of managing, having less resources, but still being able to think longer term? And how do you convince, and maybe for you guys, you didn't necessarily have to do much convincing, but convince people to focus on the brand and the longer term?
Yeah, well, it certainly helps that we have two co-CEOs. They both understand marketing. And I think at a product like company, we're very product focused, but they get marketing, they get the impact. Life used to be a creative director. Yannick, our other co-CEO, has run fintech companies, but I've also seen him design things in Figma. So it helps to kind of have that respect from the top. But it's always a balance. Of course, we spend on user acquisition in the traditional channels, and that's very much more math analytics. But we really balance that out. So my main remit is make public famous for the right reasons. I'm focused on that. We have a user acquisition team that has different goals. We work together closely. But I think it helps that that's bifurcated, because I'm thinking one way with always context into what they're doing and vice versa. I will say, on like those stunty things I showed, those are, we'll do those once a quarter. And we kind of go into that knowing not everyone's going to be a viral sensation. You cannot predict or, reverse architect virality. Some take off, some don't. And we have that understanding going in that that's how it will be. But I do think they work together. Obviously, if you're on Twitter and you see someone sharing a cool tool we made, and then you happen to get an ad later, it just helps along that journey. And I also think that being so mission led, it's really important to do things like that, because you're not going to get that level of storytelling in an Instagram ad. So they very much work together.
Gotcha. So one of the people asked in the Q&A, how does your brand and product change based on the types of users that join? And I have a feeling I know where you might go with this answer. And how do you balance the needs of experienced versus new investors? But your brand is actually trying to pull in a certain group, right?
Well, it's tough. I mean, people ask all the time, who is your target? There isn't one. We want investing to be for everyone. So if you think about the broad band of people who could invest, on one hand, you have hardcore trader types, which you can't day trade in public. So we're probably not the best solution for them. On the other hand, maybe you have people who are, they want to be very hands off. They want to hire someone else. They want a robo-advisor. And then you have this huge band in the middle of people who are curious. They have a lot of experience in their professional industries that they could apply to investing. They're looking for something different. Are they going to set up an account with a traditional stock trading platform? Maybe not. It's not really for them. And so we do have an interesting challenge of there's all these different groups of people we could potentially cater to. And so it is an exercise in finding kind of the hubs of those communities of people, like partnerships with those hubs, or finding out where do those people hang out? What do they appreciate? We have a lot of creatives who use our app just because they think it's beautiful. I saw someone here called out the UI. I mean, that might be your hook. That might be your hook before some of the trading features. It's just the experience. Same thing with marketers. Social media professionals love public because they love the social aspect. They want to learn about investing, but that feels like it's for them. So there's different kind of levers and things in the app that speak to different people, but we are for everyone. I mean, there's not high schoolers, college students on there. There's baby boomers, everything in between. And so it is about kind of how do we tap into those sub communities and make that experience feel really accessible.
Do you have a sense of whether or not your user base skews at least more diverse than that graphic you put up of all the old white guys?
Yeah, so we don't ask like ethnicity questions in the onboarding. We do know from internal estimates that our community is 40% women. I don't think that's good enough. I would rather have 50, but I'd say it's pretty darn good for our space. And you see it, right? Like I said, we can say we're making investing more inclusive if we're not actually making it a reality and who's using the app. You see it. You can go in the feed and take a look who's in there. And so that's why it's really important that we're authentically acquiring a wider mix of people to reflect what we stand for as a company.
Can you tell me a little bit about how the structure of the marketing and brand team develop over time? Like, I think what happens a lot of times is you're hiring your first marketing resource and you're torn between someone who is more senior, who may not write the content, post the content, and do all that sort of stuff, and somebody more junior who's maybe really good at executing but isn't as strategic. So, who did you use? Who's full-time? What outsourced stuff did you use? How did that develop?
Yeah. So we had a running start because Life, who heads up kind of that end of the business, is a genius growth marketer and also a creative with brand sensibility. So early on, even before I joined, he was able to kind of set that all up himself.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably an anomaly for a lot of companies, I'd say. In terms of the structure, we really view it as like channel owners. And so if we find a channel that's working, we will find someone who's a specialist in that and have that be their focus. And that is their remit and they're focused on that. I'm more of a generalist. I have someone who supports me who's a generalist, but we have channel leads in community, affiliate, influencer partnerships. We do use a PR agency. We outsource that. But it's really a lot of it is in-house. We have a full-time marketing designer in-house. We have a developer on the team who works mostly on marketing initiatives. And so again, it's nice to have the executive kind of appreciation for marketing to kind of put those resources there and not have it be an afterthought. I've worked at places where the designer's a product designer and I'm as a marketer, I'm always like borrowing them. But we do separate that out.
And how many people in total on the team?
On marketing?
No, just overall.
Oh, I think a little on between 40 and 50.
Okay,
right
and
now.
out of 50, how many people on the marketing team full time?
I say 7 or 8 right now.
Gotcha. Cool. I mean, out of a 50-person team, I would say that's a fairly robust team compared to your peer groups of other similarly sized companies. So it's definitely a real focus for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I think it's, the experience of the app is differentiated in the social layer. But at the end of the day, the brand and the mission is really what brings a lot of people in. So you need the resources to really communicate that effectively if that's kind of your key differentiator.
Gotcha. And there's a question about the visual experience. What does that team look like? And is that more on the product and tech side? Does it blur over to the marketing?
Sure. For like website marketing things, we have a team on the marketing team that does that. We have an amazing product design, front end development team that is everything in the app. So they're separate. Obviously, we collaborate, make sure that things are consistent, but they're two different things. And so it's good to, like I said, have those resources separate and dedicated.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining us today. It's really fun to see sort of a very different take in what is now, especially over the last few months, a very hot sector.
Yes.
And something that I think has gotten a lot more awareness, but maybe not has been as much accessible as it could be. So, I'm glad to see you guys working on this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Charlie. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Hope we keep in touch.
All right, we'll do. So long.
Okay, bye.